Hello, everyone. Welcome for API Days Day 1, the workshop day for all this afternoon as like an appetizer for the main event. We will have 3 hours of workshop. You have received invitations on the different workshops you can attend to. Sometimes it's demos, sometimes it's solutions. And here you are in the workshop about APIs in the legal framework for the European digital strategy. We're really glad to organize this workshop as with the Joint Research Center from the European Commission as a partner. We did a few workshops in the past in collaboration. It works well. It worked well. And it seems there is a lot of turnout between this collaboration between practitioners of APIs that comes at API Days and, let's say, policymakers and expert on the law, the legal framework, and how to open ecosystems for the public sector that are at the Joint Research Center. So it's a deep collaboration. This is the workshop we'll have today, talking about the legal framework of APIs in this European digital strategy. And then for this partnership, I'm really glad to represent API Days. I will be one of the moderator of the last panel today, but I'm really glad to have with me Monica Posada, who will come and that will appear. Hello, Monica. How are you?
Hi, Mehdi. How are you? I'm very excited, actually. I really want to thank you and all the API Days crew for offering us this unique space for putting together different stakeholders involved in the definition and the orchestration of the digital Europe. We all want to have a strong, competitive and equal opportunity Europe. So yeah, and I'm really very excited to welcome everyone to this fourth workshop, who is trying to analyze API essentials for public sector innovation. And today, as I said, we are going to look at the strategic essentials of the legal perspectives. And how to coordinate the digital and the technical and the legal perspectives of these of the APIs. First of all, I would like to give the floor to George Lobo, who is our counterpart in another directorate of the European Commission, DIGIT. He will be explaining the collaboration of the project.
So thanks for giving me the floor, Monica. So I'm George Lobo. I'm working in DigiDigit. In DigiDigit, we were operating the so-called ISAS web program, which was a program supporting interoperability and for digital public administration. This is a program that was running for a number of years. And the program has changed. I mean, the ISAS Square program, which financed this study, has changed. Now it's called, if you see in my background, I would just put down Interoperable Europe. So this is the new name. I mean, it's not a program per se. We just regroup all the activities. We do that. So, and I mean, of course, so we are focusing on interoperability, and there is no need to say that APIs are one important enabler for interoperability when it comes to automatic exchange of data machine to machine. So it fits, this study fits perfectly well. And it's also taking in a context as the name of the study is called APIs for Innovative Public Service. So we had an action that will continue. It's called Innovative Public Service. So it's to help targeted, I would say, technology-enabled innovation in public services. So, and in this work, we have different streams of work. So the one is horizontal activity. So also with the GRC, we are collaborating, looking at this observatories, this Innovative Public Service Observatory, where we trying to collect use case, to exchange knowledge also between member states, best practices. We have target studies. So there was in the past also done by our friends from GRC on blockchain, on AI, and now the current study that you will talk about. And also a number of pilots. So it's also not just to make study and work and paper. We also do some real pilots. And relating to API, there is also currently ongoing, and I guess the results are almost, there is also strong collaboration is done by SDGIT, but on enabling API with a building block we have used to exchange documents called e-delivery. If you want to know more, I put copied in the chat the link, so you can join the collection on innovative public services. I guess there will be, I can post also all the links during the meeting just to point you, I mean, on APIs, the work that has been done. And that's all I want to say. I mean, I think that maybe the last word is that one could say that APIs, it's something that has, I mean, several decades. So why we put it in innovative? It's true that, I mean, in the private sector, it has been used quite extensively since many years, but it's hard to embrace. Now it starts to be acknowledged. We can see that the public sector information and data sharing directive has put directly as a mean the best way to exchange and expose the data that the public sector might expose. So there is really a need to have these solutions to be interoperable and to have common specification. And now I will shut up and give you the floor to the interesting part. Thanks, Monica.
Thank you, George, indeed. And so your last sentences make a link very well with the next slide. So as you were saying, the APIs are technical enablers to achieving the goals of European digital strategy. They already appear in different regulatory and communication documents, such as in the European data strategy as enabler of data access, data supply and its control, in the European and the industrial strategy as the enabler of cross-fertilization between and within sectors. This has a link with small and medium enterprise innovation, and also European strategy in AI. So APIs are the enabler of access to algorithms and its control, and also access from the algorithms to data for their training and its observation. So it also plays a role. So overall objective of the European digital strategy is indeed to have a strong, competitive, resilient and green digital Europe. So let's get into the main the contents of the workshop today. So we are going to talk about the coordination of the digital interface through APIs. And the way that we are going to do it is we are trying to evaluate current coordination models. What are the legal infrastructures that are set up in different environments? And what are the approaches that to comply with the current data sharing legal framework? We will do it through the exchange of views about the enablers and barriers to coordinating these digital interactions from a systemic perspective. And we will use the metaphor of a digital ecosystem because it's easier to visualize it. And the way that we are doing, as in the former events, is by establishing a dialogue between the public and the private API practitioners and decision makers, and to try to identify solutions and jointly analyze the challenges and the opportunities. So our track today has four blocks. The first one, we are about to finish it, is the introduction, and we will put the European vision. So the GRC has done a study to try to unveil certain aspects of the digital coordination in the European context, by analyzing more than 4,000 terms of services documents. My colleague Katarzyna will introduce to the topic right away. Then we will have the private sector vision talking, and for that we will have the current European legal framework explained by our and legal expert Hans Graus, who is partnered at the law firm that is specialized in digital law, Timelex. And then we will have the API data serving legal practice in the private sector by a big technological corporation as IBM. Alan Glickenhaus will give us. He's very well known in this community, so he will talk about also the private sector vision on the topic. Then we will have the public sector. We will have the Finland case of the coordination of the digital coordination. Hanna Niemi, who gets from TIEKE, will do the presentation. The German public sector will be represented by Lilith Wittmann. He is an entrepreneur that has been trying to unveil the API infrastructure of the German government, it will be very interesting. And then indeed we have Mehdi Medjaoui. He's got a grant for the Ford Foundation in the States to analyze a Creative Commons pattern for API terms of services, and he will give us a talk on that. We will end with a very interesting expert panel moderated by Mehdi, and we will have Jonas Onland who is a digital transformation advisor in the Netherlands. We will have Daniel Sarasa Funes, who is the director of la Fundación Zaragoza de Ciudad del Conocimiento. We will have François Xavier Cao, who is a PhD candidate and entrepreneur on APIs and regulatory frameworks, and an entrepreneur. David O'Neill, who is CEO of Apimetrics, and this company is very aware of the power of APIs because they are monitoring and measuring everything virtually possible with APIs. And then we will have the legal analyst and researcher at the GRC, Katarzyna Pogorzelska. So let's do not waste any more time. We are going to give the floor to Katarzyna. As I said, she's a legal analyst and researcher at the Digital Economy Unit of the Joint Research Center. And she and myself will set up the scene for the digital coordination with APIs in the context of the European digital strategy. I'm going to share the slides. Let me just, there we go. Can you see them? So Katarzyna, please, you're more than welcome to start with the presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. Monica, I cannot see the slides, but do you see the slides?
Okay, let me just try again. Share slides. Share slides. Now?
Yes.
Perfect. Go ahead.
Perfect. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very glad to be part of the event. And today, together with Monica, I will present the work we did in the scope of the project APIs for the public sector. And our focus today, as Monica already mentioned, is on the legal aspects of APIs. So first, we will talk about the applicable legal framework for APIs. And the second part will focus on the empirical analysis of API terms of service. Next, please. About the applicable legal framework, there is no specific laws dedicated to APIs. But in order to find an applicable legal framework, we must look at the type of stakeholder and the specific way he uses an API. So in the following 2 slides, I will present different dimensions that reflect different combinations of stakeholders and their ways to use APIs. And for each dimension, we indicated the laws that need to be observed by the stakeholder. I must also add that those dimensions are not mutually exclusive. They often overlap, and in a way, stakeholders will be considering sometimes even all of them when trying to figure out the applicable legal framework. So first perspective is more from API developer perspective, and we call it designing and developing dimension. Here, API appears as a code, as a product, as a code or software product. It's a digital asset. So the primary focus for the of the laws to be observed are industry standards when designing APIs, self-regulations, co-regulations, and when we try to when we have an asset, when we have a code, we need to think about the protection under IPRs. At the moment, those issues are not, perfectly clear. If it's copyrightable, patents, trade secrets are actually very promising. Then we need to probably API developer must look on licensing. Design of the API also must integrate data legal constraints. So if an API developer develops API for a third party, for example, those constraints, legal constraints behind the data should be a part of a contract between the API developer and the data holder. Another dimension we call the service dimension. API appear as a service. So here to the fore comes the mutual arrangements, a mutual legal arrangement called contract. So service level agreement and laws governing this agreement come to the fore. In this mutual relation, important are laws relating to the information society services, consumer protection, and platform to business. Next, please. Next dimension is the data sharing dimension, and this is a perspective of a data holder. So the primary focus is on the assets or on the data shared, and API here is a tool to share this data. So for data holder perspective, laws to be observed, important laws to be observed are laws on data sharing and data protection laws. Data constraints must be reflected in the contract with the API developer, and restrictions on the data used must be embedded in data licenses, and then, thanks to this tool, propagated across the value chain. The stakeholders might also include the ecosystem dimension. It's a systemic perspective. And from that perspective, APIs are enablers of the integration into digital ecosystems. And as I said, those dimensions can be combined together. But if a data holder wants to build an ecosystem based on an API and want to share the data, the coordination and responsibilities and of accountability of different stakeholders in the ecosystem, and those accountabilities that are linked to all digital chains at the ecosystem are issue to be to be concerned and to be taken into account. Next, please. The second part of our presentation focuses on legal empirics. We did analysis of terms of service, API terms of service. Just to remind, terms of service are unilateral legal offers. When they accepted, they become a contract, a binding law between the two parties. Next. And this analysis we did precisely from the perspective of enabling an ecosystem, which means that we look at the contractual conditions having potential impact on the ecosystem building, on building trust in the ecosystem. So we look at the nature of terms of service. Are they API specific or not? Which in other words is if they are ecosystem facing or not. We look at transparency. Lack of transparency, for example, can turn the contract invalid, void. We look at the termination conditions. Are they balanced, between two parties to the agreement? We look at jurisdiction and governing laws. These are also, important building block of trust. And they are, the building trust, it can be seen as a function of the accessibility to the court in case of dispute settlement. Do we need to travel across Atlantic, to have our dispute heard? Then we look, another issue we look at is liability and warranty. And those two clauses in the contracts are enablers of building trustworthy relation. Our work is work in progress, and we're going to include other conditions from the contract, but Monica will give you more detail on that, and she will present also the preliminary results we have at the moment. Monica, floor is yours.
Thank you, Kasia. So I'm going to go through very quickly through the methodology that we used. So we have, as I said in the beginning, over 4,000 terms of service documents that come from a snapshot of the API repository of programmable web, with whom we had a collaboration in 2019. And from these terms of services, we managed to download successfully 2,800. We applied some NLP practices to try to understand both the analysis of the structure and the analysis of the conditions. You can see here the main documents and packages that we've used for the exercise. So as Kasia was saying, we had exploratory legal empirics. We wanted to try what was there. So we wanted to look at it from a systemic perspective, thinking about the robustness of the system of systems through, of course, we will need to have both the technical and the legal stability. But actually, in this exercise, we are looking at the legal stability. And for that, we will try to understand whether there was homogeneity in these API terms of contracts, terms of service contracts, and if the practices encoded in those documents were complying with governing laws, and whether they were fostering or hindering cooperation and or fair competition. So regarding the homogeneity of these documents, we did analyze three main things. So the structure, the API specificity, and then we did an analysis of what do the big API providers do. So regarding the structure, we understood that we found structural commonalities on all the terms of services. You may find in this list on the main clauses that we found. Regarding the API specificity, we try to understand how specific the terms of service are defined regarding to the application programming interface and the functionality or the data access terms that they are allowing. And we found out that only 36%, roughly 40%, do not even mention APIs in the terms of service. And more than 75% mention the word API 5 or less times. This makes us to think that actually these terms of services are focusing on one single application of that API. Instead of describing the contract as an access point to multiple potential applications. And we understood this is really true that is there any missing opportunities? Is there a lack of systemic vision? Is there a lack of understanding that the API can be used within an application, but also for other things, for other applications? The same data that is used for the traffic can be used for understanding the quality of the air or things like that. And then, so with this question in mind about the API specificity, we look to what are the big API providers doing? And what we observe is that they are using a multi-layer terms of service structure where they define the terms of services specific to common API service for the entire organization, such as the authentication or and then terms of service specific for each functionality that they are providing, such as Google Maps, Google Ads, and so on. Then we did a study of the compliance with governing laws. I will go very quick through this, so because we are running out of time, and I will be doing this presentation on another session on the APIs on Thursday, if someone wants to get more details about this. But we identified 111 legal documents that came worldwide. We had acts, regulation, directives, and decrees. Most of them come from the late 90s, and 60% of them are defined in the EMEA region, most of it in Europe. USA law appears often, very often too. But of course, this is normal because the data set is US skewed. Programmable web is provided in the US, and therefore there are much more providers that knew it and that have inserted their data there. And the GDPR is the most prominent regulation of all. It appears up in a lot of in 464 explicitly documents, and we also have mentions to soft regulations, but these ones do not appear in this graph. Then we did an analysis of the categories, the law categories that we have, and we have laws that apply to digital governance. The most prominent one was privacy. Almost 25% of the laws mentioned are related to privacy from different areas, national, regional, and plurinational. Some of them were related to ICT regulation, including database directive mentions, platform to business regulation, etc. We have mentions to intellectual property and contracts and consumer protection. And also there were laws sector-specific, environment, health, finance, and trade, export, taxes, etc. Then we did an analysis of the jurisdiction. So are the jurisdiction classes stating a legal barrier to innovation due to the geographic distance to court of dispute for settlement? And this will imply indeed different languages, lack of knowledge, and this will discourage some digital interactions. Then we analyze the cooperation and or fair competition. We check how transparent, how easy, how difficult it is to read and understand the terms of service. There was no surprise there. The legal documents are yet in 2019 very difficult to read. Almost 80% of the documents didn't have definitions. The sentences were extremely long and very difficult to read. Then the termination conditions. Almost 40% of the terms of services analyzed declare very unbalanced termination conditions, meaning that they stated that they could cancel the service at any time without any responsibility. This indeed, if it is related to an API-specific terms of service, may imply that there can be potential discontinuities in data value chains. And this will generate uncertainty, viability, and continuity of services, and most probably will discourage innovation. And with the same vein, we did the analysis of liability and warranties clauses. The working process that we have, we are checking other aspects such as indemnification, payment conditions, out-of-court dispute settlements, suspension, modification, and restriction of service provisions, and intellectual property rights aspects. And a publication will be ready in the first term of 2022. I want to thank you, and since I think that we have gone beyond the time, I think that we will be letting the session, the questions for the discussion panel, if any. Thanks a lot.